Alright, so in the CIC tutorial, we just recently finished adding a hello world job and ran a successful pipeline, as well as set up a new feature branch and set up a merge request and mark that as work in progress. So we're going to go ahead to the next part and actually add CI to the existing code that we have. So I clicked on the page to go ahead, but let's remind ourselves of what files we have here. Now, I'm really going to care about what we have, the skim.cxx file. This is a C++ file that needs to be compiled. Now, we could do something where we pre-compile it and add this binary to the project, but then that adds a lot of extra space that we have to keep copying over every time we clone, and it adds extra bloat to the repository. We want to try to keep things as sleek as possible so that things clone fast and it's easier to work with. Additionally, because compile binaries work in very specific architecture, the architecture you compile for, it's not guaranteed that whatever we compile on our computer will work in the CI. So we should get this compiling in the CI. So if we scroll down a little bit, you can see these two lines here of what seems to be working on my computer in order to get things to compile. So we're going to go ahead and add a new job in our GitLab CI YAML that's going to run in parallel to this hello world job that we have. And it's going to go ahead and compile the skim.cxx file that exists. So let's go ahead and add a build skim job here. And we'll do a script, and we're going to go ahead and do a list. So we're going to set the compiler variable, and we'll go ahead and run the root config command line interface that comes when you install root, and that will tell us what the CXX flag, the CXX compiler that root used is. We're going to go ahead and grab that environment variable, and we're going to go ahead and add in these extra flags here. I believe that's a 03, and then, that's an 03, and then wall, extra, WP, Dantic, skim.cxx. You can go ahead and copy paste. I just choose to type in to practice my typing skills. So let's go ahead and add this new job in. We'll go ahead and save this file. And we'll commit it. Let's call this build skim binary. Let's go ahead and push it. So, I mean, this works on my computer, so it should be working in the CI as well. So let's actually go ahead and check this. So we still have this, and we see that it just pops up here as a new pipeline. So if I click on this, we have this build skim job, so I'm going to go ahead and look at it. And, interesting. So root config doesn't exist. And so that's the problem, because it seems to be that root isn't available. So if I go ahead and look up here, we can see that the Docker image being used is right here. It's using a default Docker image called CI tool/CI worker for CERN CentOS 7, if you can see it at the top. So I guess that default image doesn't have root, which isn't all that useful for us. So obviously we want to be able to compile the skimming code with an image that has root. So let me go back to the tutorial to remind myself of which image that we need to use. And right here. Root : root project, root conda. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and use that. Sorry, that's root project / root conda. So let's go back in here. And we're going to go ahead and add in an image to this job. Root project, root conda 6.18.04. We're adding this image here. Use root image for build skim. And we'll go ahead and push that. Alright, So I'm going to go back to my merge request that I have here. And we should see the new pipeline. Maybe I need to refresh. There it is. So let's go back and look at this build scheme again. And it's running, so let's see what happens when it runs. Now hopefully everything should work, because I think root config generally just meant that we needed an image that already has root pre-installed. So right now there's a little bit of time that needs to happen in order to pull the Docker image root project / root conda. One thing to point out while this is being pulled, the Docker images for root will always be a little bit larger than some of the other Docker images you work with. But that's because root is in general a heavy / bladed dependency. So we're going to go ahead and wait for this Docker image to pull. Let me look ahead and see what's next here. It looks like we expect it to fail, so let's see what happens when it fails. Alright, interesting. So it looks like it's failing because there's this error here with the fatal error root/dataframe.hxx. It seems to be that there's no such file or directory with the include. Oh, that's interesting. So it looks like we're missing some include flags here. So let's remind ourselves for a second, perhaps this has something to do with root config. So let's see if we can remind ourselves of what happens here with the root config for a second, because obviously we must be missing some linked binaries here, or some linked header files in order to compile it correctly. So let me see. Let me remind myself what we need to do. So my guess is if it fails that way, we probably need to add compiler flags. Let's see if I forgot that in here. Indeed. So that's one thing that's a little bit different on my computer. My computer already has root set up to add in the compiler flags by default. So let's go ahead and add in another line at the end here for the flags. And if I remember the root config command correctly, it should be cflags and the libs. That looks right. So let's go ahead and add that in to the end. So let's go ahead and do let's add the flags at the end, shall we? Or at the beginning? I don't know. I think for clarity, let's just add the flags at the end to indicate that these are the compiler flags. So now we've added this line here for the flags, and we've added the flags here. Let's go ahead and see if this works. We'll add that file, add the changes, we'll commit them, and then we go ahead and push them. Alright, so let's go back and look at the merge request again, and I guess we need to refresh. Alright, hopefully this should work, and additionally, because we pulled this image previously, hopefully the root project image has been cached and we're using a similar runner. But it looks like this may not be the case, but that's okay, we'll just wait another minute here. In the meantime, while this is running, let's go ahead and talk about this new feature. So, right now, if we looked at this GitLab CI YAML file, we built this for a single root version 6.18.04, but perhaps we want to also build this for other root versions. So if I'm just going to go and do this in the browser just so you understand. But this is the root project. So this is the root conda image under the root project. And I see that it has a couple of tags here. This 6.20, 6.1804, which is the last one we're using. But there's also latest. Interesting. So perhaps we should build it for a specific version that we care about. But maybe we want to also build it for latest. Okay. So it looks like it's running and the job succeeded. Great. So let's go ahead and do a build skim for latest. So I'm going to copy all of these lines and then create a new job called build skim latest. This image that I'm using here, where the version tag is 6.18.04, I'm going to replace it with latest. But I'm going to keep everything else the same. Now, because these jobs are listed at the top level, they will all run in parallel by default. That means we'll build the skim for 6.18.04 at the same time as we build the skim for the latest Docker image. However, one thing that we may not care about, such as this for this latest, we don't necessarily care if our code compiles on the latest version of root. You can think of this more like a canary. So what we care more about is knowing that it builds on the latest, but if it doesn't, we shouldn't fail our CI because of that. So we're going to go ahead and add one last thing in here called allow failure. I'm going to put yes, which means I allow this job to fail. It's okay if it fails. I just wanted to tell me if it fails. Therefore, it doesn't actually crash the entire CI. Alright, so let's just go ahead and add this in. Add build skim latest and allow it to fail. Now if I go back into my browser, I'll refresh again, and there it is. Now I generally will expect this to succeed, but because I haven't touched anything about build skim, I know it's reproducible and it will pass. So let's go ahead back to the tutorial and see what else we should do here. So we've done the building multiple versions, and this last thing here is perhaps we want to use a before script, because we are setting some environment variable flags that aren't necessarily part of the script. I guess this makes sense, so let's go ahead and back to our GitLab YAML file and fix that up a bit. We'll add a before here, adding the script there, adding the before here, and adding the script there. And we can go ahead and clean this up. So once I make all of these changes, I'll stage it, clean up YAML a little bit, and then push those changes. Alright, so at this point, there's not much else left for this section, so let's go ahead back to the pipeline. So it looks like the build skim and the build skim latest pass for the previous thing we just did, which is to add the build skim latest. And now the cleaning up the YAML a little bit should also work. Let's just peek into build skim just to be sure that things worked as we expected to. So while this is pulling, I guess, from the cache, or maybe it's just pulling from Docker Hub, one thing I want to mention that's at the end of this tutorial section is about changes. So perhaps you might run only particular jobs in your code to only run particular jobs in your YAML to only run when specific files have changed. So in this case, you can imagine build skim only ever needs to be rerun when skim.cxx changes. And therefore, it builds a new .skim only if this file changes, so if you change some other file and not this file, it won't build it. However, this isn't something that we're going to do as part of the tutorial, but it's just something for you to be a little bit aware of, and that should work pretty well. Alright, let's go back and see where we are. So the job succeeded, and we are done with this section.